And greetings, welcome to the Evidence and Reasons for the Christian Faith video channel. I hope my audio is coming through. We do an audio check here. Hope it's coming through. Hello, okay. That was a little slow. So I've been stressed out, and I was so tired I fell asleep on the floor. Oh, thanks for the feedback. And greetings to you, Schnoil. So one of my computers is lagging behind, and others faster. Greetings to Discerner. God bless, and anyone else who shows up. I have 30 minutes roughly to summarize and deliver some of the work I've done over the last several years. I also have to educate the audience, and so it makes these short presentations is you have so much material, you have to comb through it, you insert some stuff and you realize, no, that's not going to work, it's going to be a disaster. Then you redo your whole slideshow. And so I probably have 5 hours of material, and I had to whittle it down to half an hour. And by the way, let me say greetings to Matt. Man, it's great to see you. I will see some people that you know there at the Creation Research Conference. I'm expecting that Dr. Martin and his family will be there. So those are friends. I showed the Martins the photo of you and me at the Dallas conference this past January. It's a long time no see, Matt. And again, thank you sincerely for taking me and Johnny B out to dinner at that Texas steakhouse. Your kindness to me is deeply appreciated, sir. God bless you. So, what is the Creation Research Conference, and what about Young Earth Creation Universities? I don't know, things have been changing at Liberty University, but for a long time, it was a requirement that if you were a science teacher, you had to be a Young Earth Creationist. So let me just show the faculty, the biology faculty at Liberty University. And I want you to see like some of the qualifications of the people there. So let me see if I can get my screen shared. So like the faculty and staff of Liberty University, there's also another Young Earth Creationist organization. Jeremy Sellers. I should know who he is. I've met him before. Jeremy Sellers. He's chemistry professor of biology. And so let's look at some of the qualifications of these guys. I know I should know Jeremy Sellers. So a lot of these people will probably be at the conference. PhD molecular genetics from Wake Forest University, BS biochemistry from Campbell University, and he's the chair. Let me point out, let's see, Gary, do we have Gary Isaacs still there? Okay, let's look at the qualifications of Gary Isaacs. Dr. Gary Isaacs teaches at a Young Earth Creationist University. There he is, PhD from Cornell University. So this is a beautiful story. He got his bachelor's at a Young Earth Creationist University. He got his PhD in biology at a premier university in the United States, Ivy League, Cornell. So Schnoil asks a very interesting question. Is this an accredited university teaching YEC? Okay, so this is more subtle. They have to teach the secular view. So when they teach the classes, they have to teach it according to secular standards. And personally, I'm A-okay with that. I'm A-okay with that. I've often said between Dr. Dan teaching me biology, I mean, I had a little informal poll on this channel among creationist students. I said, who would you prefer to have as your teacher, for biology, Dr. Dan Stern-Cardinal, who's an evolutionist, or Kent Hovind? Unanimously, it was Dr. Dan Stern-Cardinal. So they have to teach the mainstream view, and they probably have elsewhere where they teach the creationist view. So, I mean, like, for example, if you're teaching cell biology, chemistry, protein biology, biochemistry, microbiology, it's going to be pretty standard. The only place that there is an issue is if we're teaching evolutionary biology. But so there you go. Schnoil said, I prefer, and Schnoil's a creationist. He said, I'd prefer Dr. Dan any day over Dr. Hovind. And Dr. Joel is here, and he said, not so much the case anymore, and AIG has taken them off their list of fully certified creationist schools. This is partly because their religion department not being fully YEC. So this is interesting. I found that the theology departments are usually the places that are hostile to young earth creationism. Oh, by the way, Dr. Joel, your diagram, I'm giving you credits along there with Ken Ham. I hope you're tickled to see your name in lights there with side by side with Ken Ham. So this is my next rehearsal. So it had, you know, to be honest, I think the problem will not be so much creationism. It's just simply being a Christian, using the quote unquote, the politically correct pronouns. They're going to go after you for that. So I think the creationism is kind of taking, you know, they'd prefer not to have it, but they're going to go after you because you're a Christian. You may have issues that you believe that marriage is between a man and a woman. And Schnoil, I need to make you, I'm going to make, oh, wow. Let's see. I think I need to make you a moderator, Schnoil. See if I could do that. Okay, so Schnoil, you're now a moderator. So that's a little bit, I mean, I could, let me go on for the rest of the faculty there at Liberty. Oh, well, let's see. Gary Isaacs' current research interests relate to gene regulation in eukaryotes, as well as techniques using DNA methodologies. And there's, I mean, this is a respectable size of the faculty here. So you have the chair, you have 1, 2, 3, 4. Timothy Brophy graduated from my university. He got his PhD at George Mason. Lots of creationists got their degrees at George Mason. It's funny. It's like a creationist factory. 5, they're 8, 12. 16. See, these guys are PhDs in biology, and they're not from run-of-the-mill schools either. 20, 24, 28, 32, 34. They're all PhDs. Let me see if there's some names that I recognize. Boy, they've really changed the composition. Let me see if I see any names. Now, I need to point out, why haven't you heard these names in the creation evolution controversy? See, a lot of these professors, these professional researchers, they're just not out in the public eye. You won't see them. You won't see them in debates or whatever. You know, their mission is to teach and to research. So you have the internet creationists, many of whom are not as educated as these people for sure. And then you have the professional researchers and scientists, etc. So let me see. I don't know these names, and there's so many of these creationists. I know definitely Timothy Brophy is a creationist. Gary Isaacs would be. There's some names. Oh my! There's been a turnover in the faculty here. So I'm just gonna go randomly. Just look at this one. Yeah, Marcus Ross is no longer. I don't know what happened. I don't know. You know, academia is like every other place. PhD, Pennsylvania State College of Medicine, Cornerstone. And let's see, Dr. Jeremiah Winter serves in the biology chemistry department and as an associate professor of biology. Dr. Winter has publications in the American Journal of Physiology Cell. Physiology has worked in numerous students and variety of research projects. He is a member of the American Physiological Society. He was led to liberty to continue teaching the sciences from the ultimate foundation of the never-changing truths of God's wholly inspired, inerrant word, to further his research to the benefit of the students and community at liberty, and to glorify and enjoy God through each moment in the classroom. Praise the Lord for him. That almost puts tears in my eyes. I'm going to be speaking at Liberty University. These guys are busy. I don't know if they'll be there. I hope so. Let's see. I don't recognize these. This is a new crowd. Like there used to be Andrew Fabich there and David DeWitt. Okay, so Andrew Sattler, PhD. Texas Tech University, that's respectable. Miami University of Ohio. Dr. Sattler's research interests include investigating hybridization in frog and salamander species. Now, I need to point out someone. Oh, someone will ask, will you upload the final presentation? Yes, and I don't. Yes, I'm going to try to. You might even see me record it live here. Now, we're not allowed to record during the proceedings because some people will just, they're doing a little bit of a brainstorm session, and I don't think they want to be held into account for some of the speculative ideas that they put out, but it'll give them an opportunity, because it's really a session where they can be invited to receive feedback, and people will approach them and say, that wasn't a cool idea, you better drop it, or they'll say, that's great, and it may lead to publications in creationist journals. All right, so, and yes, Liberty has a huge online presence. One of the things that that attorney Jerry Falwell Jr. was good at was building up the online stuff of Liberty. Not that we don't need to go there, guys, about Jerry Falwell Jr. I guess I can talk negatively of him because the people had, the board of trustees fired him. So but if he were still president, I have to be really careful about my words, saying negative things about him. So now that they're in a lawsuit against each other, I guess I'm free to take sides. So let's see. Oh, now I know what I wanted to see. Mark Hostermeyer. Mark. Okay, there's someone in the engineering faculty, and I think there was something of a merger in the engineering faculty and the biology faculty at Liberty, which I like because both are the study of design. And he is now the dean. Now, Mark Hostermeyer had been able to get a lot of young Earth creationist PhDs when he was at another university. He's the Dean, School of Engineering. He'll be speaking at the Creation Research Society meeting. I look forward to meeting him again. And let's see. Dr. Hostermeyer joined Liberty University in January 2019, bringing 30 years of industrial, national laboratory, and academics experience after working at Owens Corning Fiberglass Sandia National Labs, which is a big deal, in Mississippi State University. Mark has demonstrated strong leadership in creating and implementing strategies in the research and academic process. He has published over 500 journal articles. He's a young Earth creationist, by the way. Conference papers, books, and technical reports with citation impact factor over 60, with over 12,000 citations. He has been invited to give over 150 lectures throughout the world and has mentored over 150 graduate students and postdoctoral researchers. He is a big deal, guys. He is a big deal. Now, I need to point out again, you could see what counts for credibility in what I would call the real world of research and teaching and bringing the next generation of young Earth creationists. And creationist ID, if you're an older creationist, you could say these are ID proponents as well. So this is in contrast to what you get on the internet or Dinosaur Adventureland. And I'm just trying to point out, I sometimes get a little discouraged that young Earth creationism is represented in social media and in popular venues by some like the people I prefer that did not represent my views. So if I wanted to uphold outstanding examples of individuals who are young Earth creationists who are in secular academia and have made a contribution to the furtherance of science in the secular world as well as in the world of Christendom, it'd be people like Dr. Mark Hostermeyer at Liberty University, the dean. 500 publications. So we talk about who would we, I was mentioning the dream team. I had a picture of Michael Jordan there with Patrick, I think it was Patrick Ewing and Magic Johnson and Charles Barkley, and then one person I don't know who. Somewhere like in the 80s or 90s, they were circulating the idea of some ultimate basketball team made of basketball professionals from the American National Basketball Association, the NBA, finally being allowed to participate in the Olympics, and they had formed the Dream Team. So it's really cool to see Michael Jordan eventually playing. Oh, Karl Malone, thank you. Thank you. Here we got someone who. Thank you, Godzilla Freak. Karl Malone. They find Michael Jordan getting a gold medal at the Olympics. I presume the Team USA won. That is. And so, who would be the dream team of creationism? Not in a 1 hour debate. This would be like, let's say we had a month-long debate, and you would bring our best against their best. Well, for physics, I would have Philip Dennis, again, and really the criteria for picking them would be they had made big contributions in the secular world They demonstrated themselves. Not the number of YouTube subscribers they have. Come on, guys. That's not the measure of your dream team. Or the number of views. Or if you're Kent Hovind, the number of people that visited Dinosaur Adventureland and the number of quote-unquote baptisms you've had. Yeah, the measure is the quality of the truth that you've delivered. So Philip Dennis would be up there. I would also put John Gideon Hartnett, tenured professor in Australia of physics. He's had at least 200 peer-reviewed papers in the secular world. He has contributed to developing sapphire-controlled oscillator clocks, the most precise clocks in the universe. And I'd say Russell Humphreys. And there are probably some more. Forgive me if I've missed. Eugene Chafin. Now, have you heard these names? Probably not. For the biology side, there is just an abundance there. I'd say Change Laura Tan. She had been appointed by a Nobel Prize winner in George Smith. Even though he's not a creationist, we would want James Tour to be representing the biology and chemistry side. And I appreciate his courage. Chemist, Fritz Schaefer. Fritz Schaefer, he's been nominated for a Nobel Prize. Marcos Eberlin, he's trained 200 PhD chemists. He's an old Earth creationist, but I'd want him on the dream team. John Sanford, of course, definitely, you know, honorable elder statesman. Oh, by the way, if you're seeing people shuttle back and forth, they're remodeling the master bathroom in my house. So, yeah, and I'm going to miss some names, and I don't mean to offend anyone. Oh, Joe DeWeese, definitely. Ulla Hoscher. There are probably some people in Europe like Siegfried Scherer. And I'm going to miss some of the European guys. Richard Buggs, Paul Nelson. I know that there are people, their names I'm missing that I should include, and I've just forgotten them, but it'd be pretty sizable. The geology side, I'm not familiar with that. I think Tim Clary, because he had taught in a secular school, he worked in petroleum geology, Tim Clary. That's the name that comes up. Now, kind of like the all-around interesting guy that's a pariah that I really love would be Walter Brown. Dr. Walter Brown got his PhD from MIT in 2 years in mechanical engineering, but man, he was so instrumental to my conversion. So guys, in the comment section, why don't you list who you would want on your dream team? I just kind of put some names off the top of my head. Dr. Hartnett distanced himself from CMI. Yeah, you know, the trend has been, and I'm seeing this especially at the Creation Research Society, that more and more people are becoming unaffiliated because it's cumbersome. You have to clear what you say through the boss, and you know, that's not very. That makes it difficult. You know, that's why it's good if you have an independent source of income like Rob Stadler. Millions of people have had he saved the lives of millions of people because of the medical devices he invented that are implanted in their heart or in the plumbing related to the heart. And so he's set, and John Sanford fed billions of people, helped feed billions of people through his invention of the gene gun to improve crop yields and help prevent crops from being prone to disease. And so he's a successful Cornell researcher. He did have his own foundation, FMS Foundation, but it really wasn't founded by, it really wasn't oriented toward hustling for donations and being on a speaking tour. So, oh my goodness, Dapper Dinosaur is here. Oh my goodness. So Dapper, greetings. We're covering Liberty University and the faculty there. Some of them have Ivy League credentials like Gary Isaacs. And I was highlighting this individual here. dean of the School of Engineering, who's a young Earth creationist, who's heavily involved. He's published lots of young Earth creationist articles, and I uphold him as a role model. He'll be at the set. He might be in the audience when I speak. 500 journal articles. He is just outstanding. And so he could say whatever he wants. He doesn't have to be affiliated with any creationist organization. Oh yeah, the Revenge of the Salem hypothesis. And you can explain that. It has to do with engineers telling biologists something. I don't know. I've always found it funny. The Salem hypothesis. Yes. So speaking of, so let's. I was just going on through the people at Liberty University. There are other YEC universities or creationist ID-friendly universities. Cedarville is highly acclaimed. And what would be another one? I don't know about Biola, but they have people like Doug Axe at Biola. And so we're just going to see where this goes. I do think Christians are just generally at risk, not so much because of their creationism, but because of political correctness, particularly in relation to gender issues. So that's where I'm concerned, really, for Christian universities in the United States. So now let's go to the CRS conference. First, let's Creation Research Conference. Be careful when you Google CRS. There's the Controlled Release Society. I don't know what that is, the Controlled Release Society. So Creation Research Society. So let's go to the Creation Research Society, and let's see. Okay. So this is the Creation Research Society website. It is an organization that is pretty much young Earth. Some members have slipped in there without being young Earth. You can be a member, and it used to be if you were not a young Earth creationist, you had to pay a little more. But when you became a young Earth creationist, if you were a young Earth creationist, you got a $5 discount on your annual membership. It's something like $30, $40. And so, hey, I decided to be I joined it when I was not a young Earth creationist. When I said, gee, maybe I should consider being a young Earth creationist. I could get a $5 discount on my annual membership. And when I became a young Earth creationist, I got a $5 discount. They don't offer that anymore, but I just thought that was cute. So these are for researchers. This isn't for promotion or evangelism. This is for researchers. And some of the names you may not, you may or may not hear. So that's a picture of Brian Thomas. When I was visiting the ICR, I had some time with him. Dapper Dino. Thank you, Dapper Dino. All right, so let's see if they have anything about the Creation Research Conference. There it is, July 22nd through 23rd. Actually, today's the first day. It's kind of a pre-conference. And you can see some of the people there. I don't recognize, there's the Martin family up here. I recognize them, partly because I could see their faces, but it's kind of hard to tell who's who just from the back of their heads here. So let's see who's on the docket for the conference. Okay, why don't I just read this? The purpose of the Creation Research Society's conference is to provide a forum for our members to present their latest research. Okay. So let's see who's there. Boaz Beksung Choi. I'm sorry, sir, I don't know who you are. Evan Navarro, proposed mechanism for mega sequence formation. Mark Hostemeyer, there's the man right there. Methodology was used by the creator when engineering the universe. He's waxing philosophical there. Savannah Robbins, I don't know this. Okay, here, Andy McIntosh, Intelligence, Information, and Thermodynamics. Andy McIntosh is a very respected professor over in England, across the pond. So let me see if I could find anything about Andy McIntosh. I think he's going to be he could be the plenary speaker. Professor Andy McIntosh, Doctor of Science, FEMA, C Math. Boy, he has all these, goodness, he has so many letters after his name. He is a professor, and I'm having a problem navigating this website. I'm sorry, Dr. McIntosh. Anyway, and we have Marcus Ross. He's a well-known name. I've interacted with James Brenneman on email. I've never met him. Eric Katzman, Nayon Lee, Nathan Mogg, David Boyd. I'm sorry, I don't know these names. Andy McIntosh is giving the Henry M. Morris Memorial Lecture. Ying Liu, he's a researcher. Stuart Burgess rings a bell. Tim Lewis, I don't know if these names ring anything to you. Matthew Serhati, I might do a live stream with him. I've met Denver Seeley. Okay, Leo Jake Hebert, the third, he is a graduate of, got his PhD in physics, so he and I can hang out together. We can talk about Goldstein's book on mechanics, and J.D. Jackson's book on electromagnetics, Griffith's book on quantum mechanics. Oh yeah, it's going to have a total nerd out session with him. He got his PhD from University of Dallas, in Texas. Jake Hebert, he is a researcher at the Institute of Creation Research. There's John Baumgartner. He's been a part of various creationist organizations. Marshall Jordan, I don't believe I met him. Hey, there you go. Salvador Cordova, 3:15 to 4 p.m. The protein orchard, rather than a universal tree, is unwittingly adopted in modern bioinformatics. Matthew Serhati. Okay, so anyway, Michael Ord, that's a common name, frequent name that we see. And then Eugene Chafin. Eugene Chafin is a nuclear physicist. He's going to talk about accelerated decay, supernova, and uranium. Now, I have to say, this could be interesting because I'd like to announce that Jordan Kareem is coming on my academic channel, and I invited him also to do a little stint here on the main channel. So we're going to have Nerd Torture session. Jordan Kareem will be talking about he'll be criticizing a paper in the CRS Quarterly, actually, a paper by Rada regarding carbon-14 dating. And I said, I provisionally said, I'll agree with you. You know, I mean, there's always things that subject to change. And I felt that what he had to say was convinced, it's in his area of specialty that to be responsible, I had to air it and let people know that there's some objections to what he's having to say. I mean, what creationists are having to say. This whole thing with accelerated nuclear decay, Eugene Chafin and I have disagreed, but he has been very, very civil to me. I've challenged his ideas, and he said that, he said some of my criticisms were good, and that, it's something to work on, and that he could be totally wrong. And I just like, sir, you have like, you know, I thought to myself, sir, you have my total respect, because I could get up there and criticize him publicly, and and he would just humbly say I could be totally wrong about this. Not just me, but other people were offering their ideas about his changes in the strong and weak nuclear forces isotropically, and I was like, Dr. Chapin, you know, what'll happen to the stars and sun if this is an isotropic change? So there are all sorts of issues, and you know, I don't know who'll be in the audience. So you have the speakers. Danny Faulkner was, as far as I remember, of AIG, was a board of directors. I hope he'll show up. So and I skipped someone. Oh my goodness, I know I skipped someone. I can't believe I missed it. Ying Liu. Okay, I am sorry. I have to, oh my goodness. Rob Carter of CMI is going to be there. I guess I just ignored the things that were highlighted in blue. Rob Carter is going to be there. I talked to Nathaniel Jeanson, and we don't know. The last time I talked to him, he said he's undecided if he's going to show up. But there are, okay, so we have someone from CMI, and that's Rob Carter. We have someone from Institute of Creation Research in Jake Hebert. And do I see any? There may be someone from, if Danny Faulkner is in the audience, he'll be someone from Answers in Genesis. So again, I said I don't know a lot of the names of the, I don't know a lot of the people here. So we'll see who else is there. And since Dapper Dino is here, I got to tell you this funny exchange, and I don't think this is too private. I'm happy to share it. So Dapper asks, sometime I'd like to hear your take on Randy Galuza of ICR saying natural selection isn't a thing, and his idea of continuous environmental tracking. I have told him in person, when he was taking me out to lunch, no less, when I was there in January, I said, you know, I don't, you know, I think this is really ambitious, an ambitious view. I pointed them to the paper that Dr. Sanford and I wrote, and Randy said, you know, I disagree with a lot of what you and John said. And then it's gone back and forth, and there's recently been an email where it was John, me, and Randy, and we sent him kind of a draft, a very, very rough draft of a book that I'm working on with Dr. Sanford. And Randy said, hey, thank you, and we'll take a look. And he said, you know, Sal is just boundless with energy, and you know, we're going to see. So going back to this thing, is natural selection a thing? I actually say, one, it's not natural the way it's framed, and I think I've refuted that. I had a session on Nerd Nexus where I said what is represented as natural selection isn't really natural. It's not what really happens. Most evolution is reductive. It doesn't select for the accumulation of complexity, you know, for the evolution of organs of extreme complication and perfection, as Darwin said. So that's one. And it's, you know, selection is goal-oriented. So there is differential reproductive abundance, but that's not selection, at least in the meaningful sense of, you know, what selection means. Selection is usually teleological. There's goals. So I'd say there's differential reproductive success, and that is the more accurate term. I think the phrase natural selection is misleading. So that's briefly. Oh, oh. You need to watch Lyle's latest video directly responding to Galuza. Says straight out that he would not recommend ICR as a source of information at this time. Oh, there's the former president of the ICR. If that's the case, Dr. Joel, Whoa, whoa, whoa. So, Joel, Dr. Joel, you have moderator rights. If you can dig up that video, you can post the link in the side chat. You could also post it in the comments. Nothing like airing out the dirty laundry before a big meeting, huh? Oh boy. Nothing like there's plenty of dirty laundry in the internet. You know, I've got creationists stabbing me in the back like Raw Matt and SFT, saying stuff that's just not true. Um, you know, it happens. You have to just kind of roll with the punches. So there we go. We talked about Liberty University, a young Earth Creationist college. People have asked me, where should I go to study young Earth creationism? I have recommended secular schools. I've recommended secular schools, and I said it's going to be hard wherever you go. There's politics, plenty, and you know, I don't know what to say about that, because when I went to school, it was easier to get in and through the system. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I also so just to set the what's the story of SFT? They hate you because of the Hovind situation. That's part of it. I also tossed them from my channel because when I started to be friendly with Dr. Dan and acknowledge him, they said, you know, Sal's the enemy now. He's promoting Dr. Dan. And Dapper Dino, if you're in the chat, are you still there, brother? SFT was circulating a rumor that Dr. Dan, Gutsick Gibbon, and Dapper Dino are going to be at my wedding. I thought that was so funny. And so for a while, there was a rumor floating around that I'm getting married. Man, that'd be nice. I'd like to get married, and but I'm not currently engaged. I do get some communications from women, kind of hinting of their interest, and you know, it's just not the right time. So yeah, it's sad that the conference won't be streamed, but I'm gonna try to get some live stuff. So it's just really funny, you know, because I love Dapper Dino, just like people love Barney the dinosaur, I guess, and I like Dr. Dan, and I like Gutsick Gibbon, and I got a lot of flack from that. So, you know, I think that's part of it, and I don't know. You know, there's just too much drama on the internet. I like to just do nerd out, you know. So we covered Liberty University, and you know, there's Cedarville University. AIG has maintained a list of young Earth creationist colleges, and Dr. Joel pointed out they're not quite. Liberty's no longer considered. They're not on the approved list anymore. Let's see. The next thing was the Dream Team. If you want to put in the comment section who would be on your Dream Team, feel free to do that. By the way, I'm tentatively scheduled to be at Modern Day Debate Saturday to talk about young Earth, the age of the Earth. It's really not my specialty. I'm more into ID, abiogenesis, and eukaryotic evolution. So that's just an announcement. It's the same day I'm presenting. Boy, that's going to be a crazy day. Let's see what else. So now my presentation. So I'm going to try to walk through my presentation. And for those of you who saw my original my first round, the first rehearsal with Peter Paleologos, you'll notice that this is just like totally redone. And the problem with doing these presentations, I only have half an hour. They said half an hour and then 15 minutes of Q&A, but you know, with all the setup and whatever, I really have to try to be within half an hour time, because you just don't know all the curveballs that can be thrown at you. And You know, it's just different when you can just be on a live stream and just talk until you're speak what's on your mind, and you don't care about a time constraint. And you have and you know, kind of know who your audience is, and it's like, oh, I could postpone the conversation till tomorrow. Like, for example, Emery Moyna and I were doing a review of R.H. Brady's paper. We didn't know how long it was going to go. It ended up 5 sessions of about 2 hours each, so that was 10 hours. And I had enough material for this because I presented a lot of stuff related to this. Every 3 minutes was like a 1 or 2 hour presentation that I've done on this channel. And I'm just like, this is killing me because I can't go into detail to really explain and defend what I'm saying. And so the process has been aggravating, where I would take 10 hours of material and try to fit, you know, pick and choose and try to put it in the presentation, and then I have to force to take it out. And it's just been miserable. And, you know, I'm stumbling on my words, trying to figure ways to make this accessible. That's the hardest thing. It's really hard to make accessible, very succinct presentations. And it's like I have to try 10, 20 different ways of saying the same thing because I have to say it in such a short amount of time. When you're free to spend an hour explaining a concept, it's different. But when you have 3 minutes to explain a tough concept, it is just miserable. So that's why this is particularly difficult. Of course, you hope that the final product is good, and they're expecting it to be good. They're expecting you to be on your A game, and I'm like, oh man, I don't feel like I'm up to this. So let's see. It is 11:13, and let me write down the time. So I'll just mark it. I'm starting at 11:14, and let me see if I could bring up my get my presentation halfway going here. Last night I had technical problems delivering it, but so let me just put my little, I may alternate. Okay. Actually, let me do a stop screen. I'm going to make sure the audio, because I have some videos here that I'm going to also share. All right. I'm going to hide this. 11:14. Let's go, Brandon. Once upon a time, there was a young man named Matt Villieu who lost his Christian faith in high school, but in his 4th year as a college biology student, as he pondered the intricacies of the cell at the molecular level, he realized the emergence of life was the miraculous work of a creator God and not naturalistic processes. 6 months later, he rededicated his life to his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I mention this to highlight the importance of the topic we'll be exploring today, namely the intricacy of the cell, and particularly the protein orchard. A major claim traditionally of evolutionary biology is that all life today present and represented in the fossil record evolved through a process of descent with modification from a single universal common ancestor, likely a prokaryotic cell. Now, there's some descent from that in the present day, but this is the generally accepted view. Credit to Joel Duff here for this diagram, and Ken Ham. So the idea is we have a universal common ancestor, and we can relate all the species through this family tree here, which we call the tree of life. In contrast, the protein parts that make up the tree of life cannot be related with the tree in this way. That is the main claim of this presentation, and I will try to defend it and also relate it to complexity of the cell. So the idea of a universal common ancestor for the protein parts, it's wrong. Strictly speaking, it's no single ancestral gene locus. That is protein/genes, the genes that code for the proteins. And if you're thinking that this is outrageous, well, first, this would be the correct view, that there are multiple independent ancestral lines, lineages, maybe even descent with modification. Just for completeness, just so the names of the proteins here, going left to right, there's a zinc finger, there's a homohexameric helicase, there is a potassium ion channel, topoisomerase 2, insulin receptor, and a heterotrimeric collagen. But just to emphasize that I'm not really out on a limb, here is Dr. Daniel Stern Cardinal. Some of you know him. He is a professor of biology and an evolutionary biologist at Rutgers University. Here is him talking about whether there's a universal common ancestral protein / gene for all proteins. Just give you a chance, yeah.
No, but you definitely, it seems like you represented my views very accurately, which is that there is definitely not one single common ancestor protein that every protein that we see is descended from. You have multiple independent things appearing at different times.
And that's interesting. Just to, just so you know that you're not hearing things, I'm going to play it just one more time. Just give you a chance, yeah.
No, but you definitely, it seems like you represented my views very accurately, which is that there is definitely not one single common ancestor protein that every protein that we see is descended from. You have multiple independent things appearing at different times.
And that's interesting. The multiple independent things, I would interpret that to be multiple independent lineages. And so the situation is we have a universal tree for all the organisms, but then we have an orchard for the protein parts of life. And creationists are keen to notice that this seems to be a disconnect. Why don't we just have orchards for everything, both for life and for the parts? And that is the creationist view. We call that the orchard model of creationism, particularly young earth creationism. And so we would be arguing for orchards all the way down. But in today's presentation, I'm just going to argue for the protein parts, the orchard of protein parts. Since some of the molecular biology this is going to be kind of tedious, I think a way to introduce the concept here and to explore why there's a protein part orchard, we'll go to more familiar everyday things and then relate those concepts to biology. But we'll start with ordinary, everyday objects. So we can actually build like tree-like relationships, even with designed objects that are man-made. So in 1886, Carl Benz made the first car, generally viewed that way anyway. That's Carl Benz of Mercedes-Benz fame. And through a process of descent with modification of the original design, we get the variety of cars that we have today. By the way, in the upper left-hand corner is the GoDaddy car driven by Danica Patrick, and the upper right corner is a picture of a dragster, and I just really like dragsters. That's neither here nor there. Anyway, let's proceed. But even though we can build a tree-like structure for the cars, we can't do the same for the car parts. Can you imagine any part of anything that could be kind of the conceptual ancestor of all the parts of a car? Like, what would be the ancestor of, say, a gas tank and a tire and a piston and a spark plug and a radiator and a battery? It just doesn't make sense. In like manner, and you can see it's a geometric mechanical problem. In like manner, it will happen also with the proteins. The proteins have these geometries, and they just don't, there's just like no gradual pathway from a common ancestor. So, and just for grins, speaking of the geometry of protein folds, this is a Richardson ribbon diagram representation of a potassium ion channel. Here's also a different look with different coloring, that potassium ion channel. And I think this is cute. This is a God-made part, and this is a man-made part. Do you see the similarity? Isn't that cute? So there's no ancestral there's no ancestral part that is the ancestor of all the other parts of a car. And this also leads to the problem of what I call all or nothing functionality, similar to irreducible complexity, but I kind of like all or nothing functionality. That is, if you don't have all the features, I wouldn't say parts, but the features, the systemic features, the system will fail. And so for a radiator to work in a typical car, it has to have the plumbing that will enable it to connect to the engine and to take out hot coolant or water and cool it off through the heat exchanger and pump it back in as cool coolant or water into the engine. So that's the idea. It's just not going to work unless you can identify certain major features that have to be there. There might be a few things you can kind of shave off, but in terms of the functionality, it has to be there. Now, we don't have time to go into this. So co-option, people familiar with the irreducible complexity thing, and Michael Behe, co-option was a big argument, but it's really very difficult to do co-option at the protein level because of the problem promiscuous domains. And unfortunately, that is such a deep topic, I won't have time to cover it, but I just need to mention it for completeness, just to allay my critics out there. So co-option, again, will not work for proteins. It might for other things. The author of the paper there on promiscuous domains was my professor at the NIH, by the way, and he worked for Eugene Koonin. So let's look at a protein that has an all or nothing feature. And my favorite is the topoisomerase enzyme. It is a target of chemotherapy because if you kill the topoisomerase, its function at least, you'll kill the cell, guaranteed. And so the idea is we'll use chemotherapies to kill cancer cells. Unfortunately, it's not very specific. It will take healthy cells down with it too. So let me take this time to acknowledge my co-author, Joe DeWeese. He is Mr. Topoisomerase. He's a professor of biochemistry at both Vanderbilt School of Medicine and also Freed-Hardeman University. I had the privilege of publishing with him the CRS article in 2019 on topoisomerase. He is published in the #1 secular scientific journal, Nature, on topoisomerases. So he's a young Earth creationist and also an outstanding secular scientist. And this is the role models I would say for the young to follow, people like Joe DeWeese, Mark Hostemeyer. I had the privilege of publishing with him in the Federation of American Societies for Experimental Biology, just a little communication there in 2019 and then also 2021. I will mention, I'm pleased to announce that we also got accepted a research article in a journal. It's getting cleaned up now. The editors have approved it. We just have to reformat it, and I'm pleased to just say I'm getting a peer-reviewed publication out again with Dr. DeWeese. The way you get a peer-reviewed article out is you have as your lead author someone who actually knows what he's doing. So here's the topoisomerase video to learn about topoisomerase.
Let's consider what happens as DNA unwinds during replication. As DNA unwinds, it acts like this rope when we pull apart its two strands. As you pull the strands apart, twisting tension builds up in the rest of the coiled portion. It is actually adding one twist to the remaining rope for each twist pulled out of it. At some point, you can't separate the strands anymore. The remaining rope is too tightly twisted. If you relax your tension on the rope, it will twist around itself in a supercoil. It is releasing tension. If you want to keep pulling the rope apart, you have to release the tension periodically, and one way to do this is to cut the rope and splice it back together. This problem has been best characterized in small circular DNAs. There are two methods of dealing with this problem in DNA. One cuts only one strand of the DNA double helix, and the other cuts both strands. Let's look at the first. Topoisomerase I enzymes cut a single strand of the double helix, pass the other strand through the cut, and reseal the break, relaxing the overwound molecule, which now has one fewer twist. Topoisomerase II enzymes do the same thing but with both strands of the double helix. Topoisomerase II cuts both strands of a double-stranded DNA and passes another double strand through the break and then reseals the break. So if a molecule of DNA is supercoiled, topoisomerase II can remove the supercoiling, 2 twists at a time, to yield a relaxed circle.
Wasn't that awesome? That's one of my favorite enzymes. And so this is topoisomerase, Richardson ribbon representation of it. It does look like scissors, and that makes sense since it cuts DNA. Now I'll talk about the problem of all or one features, all or nothing features, all or nothing. Granted, there are some enzymes that cut DNAs like endonucleases, but let's say you have topoisomerase there, the ancestor say you have an ancestor of topoisomerase, and all it does is cut. All it does is cut when it finds a tangle. So let's say it finds all these tangles and it cuts wherever it finds a tangle. Well, this would be very bad if the topoisomerase doesn't stitch it back together, because the genome would then be just trashed. The cell is pretty much trashed. Certainly its lineage is trashed. There's no further evolution. Now, if we didn't have something that would let's say all it did was reconnect, but if there's not a cutting phase or an untangling phase, that's moot. It's not going to work. The genome will be tangled and the cell will die because it can't untangle itself. If it had an untangler but didn't cut and didn't reconnect, what we call ligate, that would be bad too. And you could just go on and on. So this is the problem of all or nothing functionality. And I already said, particularly in proteins, because of the problem of promiscuous domains, the difficulty of basically doing gene splicing on the fly, co-option is kind of off the table for that, for these things. Maybe not for something else, but definitely for this. And okay, but to be fair, there are conceptual examples where there can be functional intermediates. And by the way, I could see there's comments and questions in the chat. I'm trying to get through this first, and maybe I can go back and address those. I'm grateful for that. I'm just sorry I have to kind of blow through this because this is a rehearsal. So in terms of mechanical things, we can conceive of, like, say, the evolution of, say, a bolt. It could be start off as a random lump of metal, and conceptually we could mold it into a nail, and then the nail is has the right geometry to look a little bit like a bolt. That's reasonable stepwise evolution from a conceptual sense. And but there are all or nothing situations like the threaded nut. There's no gradual evolution from a simple functional form, as far as I could see. It's just all or nothing. Like if you didn't have the threads there, that would fail if it's not the right size, etc. They're also, you can't really, it doesn't make sense conceptually to evolve a nut into a bolt. It would result in implausible, absurd conceptual transitionals that I don't see that they're functional. I certainly don't see those in the hardware store. Random geometric changes to a nut will cause the nut to be a bad nut before it becomes a good bolt. Therefore, it will not evolve gradually. And so survival of the fittest will actually prevent evolutionary change. Oh, Cheshire Vic is here. Greetings. This is known in evolutionary biology, particularly in evolutionary computation, evolutionary computing. It's the problem of fitness landscapes where, and I have a typo here. I better fix that. Let me write that down. Better fix that in my slide. That's what rehearsals are for. The problem of fitness landscapes where something is trapped in a fitness peak and prevented from evolving. Here's also another transition that's absurd, going from a bolt to a nut. And this is extensible to biology, and we'll get there, but I'm trying to frame the problem in terms of everyday things. So again, here's another example. A nail will evolve to be a bad nail before it can be a good wrench. Even if it is an incrementally reasonable transition from the standpoint of geometry, that is, you could see the nail kind of like a rod, and it's kind of shaped like the wrench, not exactly. It is not a reasonable transition from the standpoint of functional intermediates. But there's also another problem here, that what good is a wrench unless you have this tool, but if it's not there to help assemble anything or work on something like a nut, it's useless. So there has to be coevolution. Coevolution is a problem in evolutionary biology for a number of reasons, and you can kind of guess it has to do with kind of the geometry of connecting parts. Proteins have a lot of connection issues that have to be resolved. So like, let's look at, again, this nut and bolt system. The parts have to be connected very precisely. And if people are saying, well, you can't apply the metaphor to biology. And I'd like, well, the only reason I can't is biology is even more persnickety, more precise than what we have in the man-made world. This is a diagram from Bruce Albert's Essential Cell Biology. He's illustrating how we have two shaped proteins that are meant to connect together. But the additional constraint is that there have to be, there's a charge distribution on each of the proteins, where the positive charges have to match the negative charges on the corresponding protein, because opposites attract. And so this is kind of, this is like how the parts come together and they attract each other. So this is an additional layer of constraint. And this is only a two-dimensional diagram. The connections really are in 3D. And to illustrate that, I had this kid's puzzle, a little toy here. You could see all the connecting parts to assemble it. And it reminds me of this protein, the EZH2 protein of the polycomb repression complex. I love all those pretty colors there. And again, just to emphasize the point, things have to connect well. For proteins to function, they have to connect well. And this is also another reason why many times variations, mutational variations will change the geometry. Changing the geometry compromises the connectivity. And that's why most mutations at best are neutral, or they are detrimental to function. Just for grins, that EZH2, it can all, here's a representation of it being part of the polycomb repression complex, and you're just going to have more and more and more and more connections. That's why it's so sensitive. Proteins are so sensitive to variation if it is affecting the geometry and also the connection points. In the interest of time, I won't have the chance to cover promiscuous domains. I mentioned it in passing already. It is a great topic. I just don't have time to explore it. So the point was, there's no universal common ancestor for all proteins, or really technically the genes that code for the proteins. And I showed that Dr. Dan was in agreement with me on that. He may have come to that conclusion for different reasons. And I really, Dr. Dan is a great guy, and I'm sorry we're on different sides of the debate. We've had a very cordial relationship, and there have been rumors he was going to be at my wedding. That was so funny. Dapper Dino got together, and Dr. Dan were going to be at my wedding. I killed that rumor real fast. But anyway, let me take a philosophical detour before to finish out here. This is a straight pencil that's dipped in water. The straight pencil dipped in water looks bent. And why am I bringing this up? Creationists have to argue that things are created, but they look evolved. Things are created, but they look evolved. There are actually good reasons that people believe in evolution. Now, I'm going to cover that. I encourage creationists not to be too dismissive of evolution, because there are reasons that people can believe it, just like you could believe this pencil is bent. And it took Willibord Snell to figure that out after thousands of years. He figured out the paradox of why it's bent. It looks bent when it's actually straight. And more powerfully, for thousands of years, we believed that the sun orbited the Earth. It was a reasonable supposition, given that we would see the sun rise and set every day. And it's just reasonable to think that the sun orbited the Earth. Well, it turned out that there were some, it looked like such a great theory, and it just had a few little tiny anomalies like retrograde motion. But that was the undoing of it. The correct view of the relationship of Earth and the sun is the Earth orbits the sun, the moon orbits the Earth, and the Earth rotates. That explains a lot of the motions we see in the sky. And so just just file this away for later, that things can look one way, but they're actually the opposite of what it looks. So Stephen Gould, who is an atheist, famous paleontologist, he said, did he, that is God, create to mimic evolution and test our faith thereby? He was just saying, hey, why did God make things look like they're evolved if they're created? And my counter is, well, then why did God make the pencil look bent? Or why did he make it look like the Earth is the center of the universe and that we live in a geocentric universe? And I'd say, Dr. Gould, God wasn't being deceptive. He gave you the means to figure out the way it really is. And I will say the way it really is that everything's created. There is a little bit of microevolution, but it's created. Evolution has an illusion of, biology has the illusion of being evolved, just like the pencil looks bent, or the Earth, you look at the sky, it looks like the universe revolves around us, and it's not the case. So now going to the bioinformatics of this, which is why I think Dr. Dan, his reasoning in that video, he said he appealed to bioinformatics to say why there's a protein, basically a protein orchard. So collagens account for 25% of the protein mass in our bodies. There's a beauty supplement you could buy at Walgreens that's made of collagen. This collagen, like all proteins, is made of amino acid. These are the amino acid chemical diagrams, but we can represent the amino acids in terms of English alphabetic letters, like A for alanine, R for arginine, et cetera, et cetera. And so like a collagen protein would be just this long string of, just imagine it as a long string of amino acids represented by English alphabetic characters. I'm going to just represent it here with a wraparound. This is the collagen type 1 alpha 1 paralog. And 1464 amino acids. There's a pattern here. It's non-random. Take a look. There's a segment here where every third amino acid is a G for glycine. Now let's take a look at another protein. This is the human zinc finger 136, crab zinc finger protein, 540 amino acids. And there is a non-random pattern here. The cysteines, the C's, and the H, the histidines, they connect to the zinc ions. So every row that you see that pattern is a zinc finger protein. Zinc finger domain in the zinc finger protein. And there are higher order patterns here that are based on the Venn diagram. We'll skip that. But what I really want you to see is just purely from what they call the primary structure, that is the spelling of the protein. Each architecture, like one for the collagen, one for the zinc finger, is distinct. It's not reasonable to suppose they had a universal common ancestor or to insist on it. You could say there was, but it's like, well, it'd be very unrecognizable. It doesn't look like any of the descendants. You might as well just say they had independent origins. It would be just as adequate. Now we're going to get into this appearance of evolution, because creationists will go to high school, they're thinking, oh, wow, this is really cool. There's no common descent. It's not so easy. So here we have on the left the zinc finger protein for a human, represented by Captain Kirk, and for a pig, represented by a pig. Someone commented that some women will say the pig and Captain Kirk are identical or similar. Anyway, so you could see this would look like powerful evidence for universal common ancestry, because you can clearly see that the pig's zinc finger looks very similar to the human zinc finger in terms of the basic architecture. It's about 50 to 60% sequence similarity using bioinformatic computation. And you could build these phylogenetic trees, just it looks a little bit like the tree of life if you take other species. And so again, this would be powerful evidence in favor of evolution. But creationists like myself will say this is just an illusion. It's not really there. You have to scrutinize things a little more carefully and you'll see that it's infeasible. And I'll explain why I think it's infeasible. We could do the same for collagen. And you could see the collagen for humans on the left, the collagen for this zebrafish on the right, about 75% similarity based on sequence comparison. And this would be powerful evidence in favor of universal common ancestry. This is undeniable. And we can again build these phylogenetic trees that look like, that resemble the tree of life. But I'll argue that there are alternative explanations. But the first thing to recognize is that the parts themselves do not have a universal common ancestor. I've tried to argue, like in the case of the topoisomerase, and I could do that for the zinc finger and the collagen, that these would have to be instantaneous, the result of instantaneous miracles because of the problem of all or one functionality. And we just don't have, in the interest of time, I just can't explore that in this discussion here. But I think I can forcefully argue it. But this, if we're willing to accept the miracle of the origin of these proteins, we can accept the miracle of the origin of like whole life forms. And therefore, you know, maybe the appearance of evolution is just this, just like this. It is the result of a superficial examination of the facts. It may look, the pencil may look bent, the earth may look like the center of the universe, and life may look evolved, but on closer scrutiny, it is overturned, and that's what I'm arguing here. So how can it be overturned? If we're old earth creationists, I'll say, yeah, common descent, you know, is very reasonable, but you would still need to have miracles of special creation for the protein forms. Still need miracles of special creation for the protein forms. If we find scientific evidence for a young earth, scientific, that the clocks indicate that the earth is young, this would definitely argue in favor of independent origins, both for the protein parts and for the whole creatures. It would be the orchard model of creationism. Let's see how I'm doing on time. I'm at 27 minutes. So, you know, there are papers here. We don't have to go through it. This was from the abstract from my talk. This is getting too technical, and we just don't have time in the interest of time. So let me, before we go to the question and answer, let me acknowledge my other co-authors. Joe DeWeese was the second author. Another author is Henry Vittler. He helped me on the problem of complexity. His specialty is insulin receptors. I'd like to acknowledge Dr. John Sanford. This is his gene gun that's at the Smithsonian Museum of Smithsonian National Museum of American History. Through this gene gun, the concept, he was able to help feed starving billions. He's a Cornell research professor, retired now. Excellent secular professor, another role model of a creationist, a Christian, and an outstanding scientist. He set records when he co-authored a paper with mathematician Bill Basner in the journal Mathematical Biology. They set records for the number of downloads by large margin. This led to him speaking, addressing the body at the National Institutes of Health. Of course, some people flipped out that they had a young earth creationist speak at the National Institutes of Health, but he certainly earned his stripes and the right to be heard by his scientific career. I had the honor and privilege of publishing in a Springer Nature reference work, the Handbook of Mathematics, and this is now on university library shelves. I'm pleased to say it's on library shelves and not on people's bookshelves usually, because it retails for about $1,500. Now, just for those who really want it, you can get it at a discount at Walmart for $819. By the way, I know you might be wanting to buy it just to get me some money. I don't get a dime for any of the publications. I would like to acknowledge Walter Amine, who is the inspiration. He's also the co-founder of Baraminology. And that's pretty much my presentation. Thank you, and God bless you, giving me the chance to present today. Let's go to the question and answer. All right, I did that in 29 minutes, guys. How about that? Okay, so I thought Dapper Dino and the others in the comment section, I really value that. I'm sorry I couldn't take it as we were going. And if you saw my first presentation with Peter and how slow and clunky it was, and compare it to, you know, now that's a little bit more together, I'm feeling energized for Saturday. Saturday afternoon, I'll present to the Creation Research Society. I'm tentatively on the docket for modern day debate. I'll be defending young Earth creationism. And yeah, thank you. I liked it a lot, way better than the first one. Yes, it was way better than the first one. So now I did point out, let me backtrack a little bit here. I'm gonna have a little spy, or no, what do you call it? A plant. I'm gonna have a plant in the audience to ask the questions. I don't know who I'm gonna pick for a plant. And I'm gonna even post that I have a plant. I'm gonna say, hey guys, we're at the question and answer session, but I have a plant in the audience. He's gonna ask me this question that Todd Wood asked at the Baraminology study group or creation biology group at Purcellville Patrick Henry College, 2012. He said, why did God make these patterns of similarity and diversity in the genes and proteins? And so that pertains to this here, this diagram here. Why would he make, you know, God could have made, like, say, the human collagen and the zebrafish collagen identical. Why did he make it diversify in such a way that it looks evolved, that you have this phylogenetic tree? That's basically what Todd Wood was asking. That's what Todd Wood was asking. And my answer is in steganography, that they're hidden codes there. And actually, the peer-reviewed publication that is coming out, God willing, relates to this problem. And I'll explain it. So let me see if I can. Okay, so we have, it's the hidden codes. So let me see. I'm sorry to be jumping around. So we have here the human sequence and the zebrafish sequence, and the evolutionary biologists will make this phylogenetic tree. What we can do in the modern day instead, additionally, is, yeah, we could build these trees, but some of these smart guys said, let's just pump this through a computer algorithm and see if we can generate like these covariance matrices or autocorrelations. There are all sorts of names for it. There's, in MATLAB, it's called direct coupling analysis. And we put it through the direct coupling analysis program, and what will happen, we can find the relative geometry in terms of what we call contacts, or the closeness of the points of the various amino acids in 3D space. If you put it through if you'll forgive me here, if you put it through this direct coupling algorithm, or things like AlphaFold or K-modes or these other things, I happen to be working on the K-modes algorithm, you'll be able to figure out the shape of the protein. So like we could do this with topoisomerase. We can predict the three-dimensional structure. It's like hidden in all of these sequences is a secret code spread out throughout all biology. Boy, I have a lot of slides. Okay, here's the slide I wanted. you could have these, you have these pieces of the puzzle basically in all these biological organisms. Because they have slightly different sequences, you can pump it through direct coupling analysis, and the direct coupling analysis plus some heuristic algorithms can then predict the fold. Like you have the folds of the collagen. The fold is basically the shape, or the fold of topoisomerase, or the fold of homohexameric helicase, etc. And this is an astonishing thing. So my answer to Todd Wood's question, why does it look evolved? It's because God, it looks evolved, but it's a byproduct of God's real intention. That was to make biology discoverable. It's great that we have model organisms like chimpanzees that are so similar to us that we can do medical testing on them. I know that's going to break Erica's heart. We used to use primates for medical testing, but now, you know, we have rats and mice that are similar enough to us that we can use them for medical exploration. I believe that God had created all these creatures so that we could understand our own biology. And like in the Old Testament, when creatures were sacrificed in our place to atone for our sins, and it says in the Bible that Jesus, by his stripes, were healed, Jesus being the Lamb of God. These creatures are there so that we can understand our biology and find healing. By their stripes, we are healed, so to speak, medically. And that's a picture of Jesus, who by his stripes, we are healed spiritually and in all sorts of other ways. So that's my answer to Todd Wood's question. So now, why don't we go to the backlog of comments and questions. And I'm going to have to start getting ready to drive off to Liberty. I don't know if I'm going to get there in time to finish out. I think I'm not going to make the afternoon session. I'll be around here. I'm going to miss the first day, but I've just been backlogged. You can see all the contractors here just shuffling through my home. So, okay, so yeah, thank you. I encourage the viewers, if they missed the earlier portion, I was just talking about Liberty University and all the great young earth creationist researchers that you may never have heard of. And Cheshire Vic is here. I'd be happy to show up on your channel, Cheshire Vic, to talk about how to beat the casinos. I actually was on another show recently, so I don't talk only about creationism. Let's see. Will you give a separate talk on co-option someday? I think I should. It'll be here, and if I forget, please. It is really an important topic, so please remind me. Co-option does happen. It's perfectly reasonable for like systems like the bacterial flagellum. We do see co-option of pre-existing proteins. The problem for co-option in a single protein. Okay, so now that I'm not under a time constraint, I can afford to be long-winded. So let me find a diagram for you and talk about it. So, okay, this is why it's so difficult to give a succinct presentation, because you can't get into the technical details easily. So let me just try to get, let's go to the diagram of the zinc finger protein, and I will show you here. So you have the zinc finger protein, and we can subdivide the protein into components that we call domains. So each row here, where you have like, this pattern of C and H, consider that a separate modular entity, like a component. And we call that a domain. It has its separate fold, and mechanically it connects to the zinc ion. Let me see if I can find a Let's see if I could show this.
Is that your trash can out there or your neighbors?
It's my neighbor's, Mike.
Oh, okay,
All right, thanks.
sure.
Hey, Mike, you want to say hi to my friends?
My hair's messed up, I'm dirty and fat, and I'm hungry.
Hey, you know, let me show you Mike. Mike here, he's a guy from church. He used to hang out with the Hells Angels. He's a big biker. You want to have a seat, Mike?
No, I don't.
And then
But I have to.
there's a beautiful girl here.
Oh,
Her name is Cheshire Victoria.
How you doing?
How you doing? And Mike is
hungry.
Mike's a real pirate, you know, and he became a Christian, and he
Not a very good one, but I'm working on it.
All right. Well, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
You take care. He's doing a great job on. He's the one who he helps build out my house.
Are you hungry at all?
I'm fine.
Okay. And you can see where you're at. I'm going to drive through your front yard over on that side and get out.
All right.
Okay. Don't tell the neighbors. I'm just driving across their front
All
yard.
right. Hey, and there's a good-looking son over there, Jake.
Where'd he go?
Yeah, he's.
Okay.
Oh well. You take care, Mike.
Oh, hey, Sal. You want me to leave like? No kid.
Oh boy. You're gonna destroy my reputation here, Mike. Mike went to my local church there. So anyway, we were talking about the zinc fingers, and I have a picture of a zinc finger protein here. Let's see. The zinc finger. Okay, so let me show the zinc finger here. I'll have to shrink this a little bit. So I think this might be the histidines and the cysteines, or vice versa, and it connects to the zinc ion. Okay, so just bear in mind you have the histidines and cysteines, and it connects to the zinc ion. Now going back to the orchard diagram, let me go back to the slideshow here, and concurrent slide. So you imagine that fold where you have this cysteines and histidines connecting to the zinc finger. Every row then is a separate zinc finger in this protein. So that's why the structure, the spelling of this protein is critical to function. It dictates the shape. All right, so now let's go back. I'm going to hide this. Oh, stupid whore energy. Oh my goodness, I mentioned Cheshire Vic. I should have mentioned you, stupid whore energy. Miss Energy, I'm so sorry about that. I should have, I didn't mean to disrespect you there. Okay, so that will give this fold here. But the problem is, it's very hard to take, let me go back to here. If we wanted to transplant portions, so we have this zinc finger domain, and there are other kinds of domains. Let me see if I have a picture of that, the other kinds of domains. There are other kinds of domains in biology where we could just take, it's just like words inside the protein, and we can represent it by little blobs like that. So like the zinc finger, you can have like a crab domain and then little zinc finger domains here organized like that. The problem is when we're co-opting the parts, you'll have mix and match like Legos. See if I picture, yeah, the little kids can take the little Lego pieces. You take a piece from one gene and a piece from another, and you mix and match and make a new gene. And we call that a promiscuous domain. Sorry, we have stupid whore energy here. Sorry, that just seems So funny. Yes, the evolutionary biologist called it promiscuous domains. That is, and that was my professor there, who see here, Professor Rogozin. He's the co-author of this thing called Evolution of Protein Domain Promiscuity in eukaryotes. And so the problem with promiscuous domains, even in that paper, they said, we can't explain how this happened. And I'm just like, well, you'd have to have the right piece sliced out at just the right location. Otherwise, you're going to blow away the spelling. It's very precise. And it has to be transplanted into another protein. And then it has to be functional. It's just so difficult to achieve that. I did a separate talk on how difficult it is to have promiscuous domains for zinc finger proteins evolving. And I'm putting, oh my goodness. Someone said he's in serious need of caffeine. Oh, I'm so sorry. See, I knew once I got into nerd mode, I'm going to start to put people to sleep. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Dapper Dino. Okay, so that was a separate talk. You know, I may do that, but that'll talk. You know, I'm glad we covered this. It's much more difficult to do co-option of domains in proteins because you'd have to do all this transplanting of pieces, individual parts, which is just going to be nightmarish. It would be the sort of mutation that is a translocation, not a simple point mutation, and it's a translocation that has to be extremely precise. Okay, so I'm gonna have to get ready to. I have to pack up. I have my the place I have to set up. So, oh, Dapper said that was quite the Venn diagram, and that was referring to. Yeah, this is an awesome Venn diagram here. That one for the amino acids. And Benthoven is here. You know, every time I think of you, Benthoven, I think of bent pencil. There's Benthoven, there's Kenthoven, Benthoven, and bent pencil. So I think Benthoven is the transitional between Kenthoven and the bent pencil. I'm sorry. Anyway, at least in my mind. If you put enough eyeliner on Captain Kirk, he becomes Evil Kirk. And Stupid Horror Energy, nice picture. And Cheshire Vic. You can get a topo from a single amino acid chain in an endonuclease. Well, I did mention endonucleases. Boy, you're pretty sharp there. There is the problem is you can't get a functional topo. Remember, it's going through there and cutting wherever there's a tangle. Endonucleases look for, like, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Miss Energy, it looks for the palindromic sequences. So the mechanism that deploys a topoisomerase looks for knots. It searches for knots, and that's a knotty problem, how it can do that, and cuts in the location of knots. Endonucleases look for the palindromic sequences. It is somewhat sequence specific. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'll wait in the side chat for that. Thank you. But the problem is, let's say you did have a topoisomerase going in there and just chopping wherever there is a knot. That's not going to be good. In the case of endonucleases, you know, you do want that separation, but then, you know, what do you do thereafter? The topoisomerase's role is to untangle and to reconnect. But thank you. That's a good comment, just for completeness. And again, these are sorts of things I can't cover in a short talk, where I can actually address some of the criticisms of what I'm saying. I like that movie, Stupid Horror Energy. And you can't go from proteins, don't share common protein ancestor, do they need a miracle? They are missing steps in that. I tried to just, you know, I'll accept that criticism. I may disagree, but you revealed that eyeliner is greater than goatee. Okay, we are showing our Star Trek. We're all, you know, we are nerds because we know Star Trek. Um, I am proven wrong and I repent in dust and ashes. Ah, yes, that great vendor, Academic Works, Walmart. Monographs are so expensive. Yay. Mats, laugh out loud. What does GG stand for? I actually don't know. Yes, he liked my presentation this time around, way better than the first one. No apology needed. I wouldn't expect you to stop a presentation for a chat. Sorry, I have to take off and finish my audio check. I finally went through the most of my exams for this semester, so I might be able to watch your upcoming debate live. I'm disappointed that it's 2v2. Yeah, I don't know if that's going to take place. You know, some people on the creationists on the internet don't like me. They might try to persuade my debate partner, my tag team partner, not to join me. So we'll see. Oh, thank you. Good job on your presentation. It's pretty comprehensive, though I came in like near the end. And bye, Cheshire. And no, never reveal your plant. You don't need topisomerase. Okay, we covered that. And see if Stupid Whore had something to say at the end. Oh, GG stands for good going. And all right, Matt's. You don't need life either, but we are here. Chimp Assembly is shite. They need to redo it. And Sal hanging out on YouTube instead of going to the conference. Yeah. Debate Hub, casinos. Because you're in good company, Dapper Dino, despite the fact that you are computer generated. We were too busy trying to create you to ask ourselves if we should create you. And Mike, who's Mike? Oh, Mike. Mike the pirate, the bad boy. And okay, Danish debater, it's great to see you. Chiefs had to set out for her own show. Yeah, Jesus loves you, Mike. Yeah, that's great. Goodness, he was a biker. I'll let him tell his story. It's a great story. I think I could release a little bit of it. One of his buddies had a marijuana farm, and he'd hang out his marijuana farm, and his buddy said, "Hey, I found Jesus," and he started sharing it with Mike, and Mike became a Christian, cleaned up his life, and he's a good guy now. Oh, yeah, I better be sorry. He wanted to grab a bite with me. And yeah, I started putting Dapper Dino to sleep. He needs caffeine. GL, good luck with the presentation, and goodbye, Dapper Dino. And Dapper's a science nerd. I'm sure he's just tired. Yeppers, I got bent like that pencil. I am the missing link. Star Nerds, and GG stands for good going or good game. Well, it's been a lot of fun, everybody. I'm for those of you who've seen the evolution of my presentation from how I was really stumbling on my words, you know, grasping it, you know, trying to fish for words, just like I am now. You know, once you get it rehearsed, it ends up being a little smoother, and I hope I can deliver it that way come game day. And so I'm going to just have the closing credits. I may have some live streams when I get to interview some of the participants at the Creation Research Society. I'm gonna, you know, I'm looking forward to having um, to meet some people and getting to interview. Marcus Ross has always been really generous to come on and just say a few words. I'm looking forward to getting them to just talk about whatever's on their heart. Just really short interviews and maybe 5-10 minutes. So for now, I'm just going to close with one of my favorite piano pieces. I've performed it before, Rachmaninoff's 18th Variation on a theme of Paganini. Before I became an engineer and scientist, I was an artist. I love playing the piano, and if I didn't have to get a job, this is what I would be doing, playing piano. So take care, all of you, and may God richly bless you.